Your energy is far more powerful than most people realize, and when you begin to understand this truth, the entire dynamic of dealing with toxic people changes. The smartest individuals know that every encounter, every conversation, and every relationship is influenced by the frequency at which you operate. Toxic people will always try to pull you into their emotional storm because that is the environment where they feel most in control. But when you learn to hold your ground and keep your inner state steady, they lose their power over you. Your energy becomes your first and strongest line of defense. It's like a shield that you carry with you everywhere. A shield that strengthens the more you become aware of what you allow into your mental and emotional space. You don't need to confront every negative person. You don't need to argue with every rude comment. And you don't need to match the low vibration of someone who thrives on chaos. All you need is the discipline to protect your energy, to choose how you respond rather than react, and to stay connected to the calm, stable core within yourself. When you begin protecting your energy, you stop giving away your peace so easily. Toxic people often feed off reactions. They thrive when they can trigger you. They feel powerful when they can disrupt your inner balance. But what happens when you no longer respond the way they expect? What happens when they throw negativity at you and you don't absorb it? They lose the control they were trying to gain. They become confused, irritated, even frustrated because their usual methods no longer work on you. That's the silent power of mastering your energy. You become so centered that their chaos cannot penetrate your clarity. And this doesn't happen by accident. It requires awareness. It requires understanding yourself deeply enough to recognize when someone's energy is affecting your own and to take immediate steps to reset your internal state. When you consciously choose to remain calm, grounded, and intentional, you shift the entire interaction in your favor without ever raising your voice or lowering your vibration. Your energy is a reflection of your thoughts, your beliefs, and your emotional patterns. When you allow toxic people to influence your mood, you are essentially giving them access to your mind. Think of how valuable your mind is. It creates your future, your decisions, your growth, and your possibilities. Why give anyone the power to disturb that? This is why the smartest people treat their energy as something sacred. They don't let everyone have access to it. They don't tolerate anyone who consistently drains it. They become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. And when you become selective, you naturally attract healthier environments, healthier relationships, and healthier conversations because you are operating from a higher internal standard. Toxic people are uncomfortable in the presence of someone who refuses to match their negativity, and eventually they either change their behavior or remove themselves from your space. Energy mastery also means being aware of what you send out. Toxic people sometimes provoke an energy in you that doesn't even belong to you. Their bitterness can make you bitter. Their anger can turn into yours. Their insecurity can influence your confidence. This is why protecting your energy is not just about blocking negativity, it's about choosing what you project back into the world. When you hold your inner peace with strength, you radiate something that toxic people cannot overpower. It's the kind of presence that speaks louder than words. It tells people this is a person who cannot be manipulated emotionally. This is someone who doesn't bend under pressure. This is someone who leads from within. And the more you strengthen this inner energy, the clearer your life becomes. Conversations flow smoother because you're not responding from a wounded place. Decisions become easier because you're not clouded by emotional noise. You feel lighter, freer, more confident because your energy is no longer entangled with the chaos of others. You begin to notice how different you feel when you interact with someone who respects your energy compared to someone who drains it. That difference becomes your guide, showing you what to avoid and what to embrace. Your intuition becomes sharper, your emotional boundaries become stronger, and your sense of direction becomes clearer. Smart people trust this inner compass because it leads them away from toxic environments and toward experiences that expand their life rather than diminish it. When you reach this level of awareness, you stop seeing toxic people as obstacles and start seeing them as reminders of the person you refuse to become, reminders of why your peace is invaluable, reminders of how far you've grown. You stop taking their behavior personally because their toxicity is a reflection of their own inner conflicts, not of your worth. And because you're grounded in your own energy, you respond with intelligence instead of impulse. You choose what you give your attention to, and where attention goes, energy flows. When your energy is directed toward clarity, growth, and inner stability, toxic people have no choice but to fall into the background of your life. Boundaries are one of the greatest forms of self-respect. Yet so many people feel guilty for setting them because they were conditioned to believe that protecting themselves is somehow selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are not barriers meant to shut others out. They are filters that determine what kind of energy you allow into your life. When you begin to understand this, everything changes. You start seeing boundaries not as walls, but as gates that you control, gates that respond to your emotional well-being, gates that guard the peace you've worked so hard to build. Toxic people often target individuals who struggle with boundaries, because those without boundaries are the easiest to manipulate, guilt trip, or drain. But the moment you strengthen your boundaries, you disrupt the entire pattern that toxic people rely on. You take back authority over your time, your attention, your emotions, and your mental clarity. A boundary is simply a declaration of what is acceptable and what is not, but many people hesitate to communicate their limits. They fear conflict, rejection, or discomfort, and this fear becomes a playground for toxic minds to invade and dominate. When you don't set boundaries, you unintentionally teach others that they can cross your lines without consequence. You teach them that your emotional space is accessible to anyone. You teach them that their demands are more important than your peace. But when you begin expressing your boundaries with clarity, without apology, and without emotional tension, you teach people how to treat you. You redefine the rules of engagement. You set the tone of the relationship. And people who genuinely care about you will respect these boundaries effortlessly. Those who don't were never aligned with your well-being in the first place. Boundaries are also powerful because they force you to evaluate your own worth. How you allow others to behave around you says more about how you see yourself than it does about them. If you constantly tolerate disrespect, manipulation, inconsistency, or emotional turbulence, it means there is a part of you that still believes you deserve it. But when you raise your standards, when you decide that your peace is not negotiable, when you stop explaining yourself to people who don't even listen, you shift the entire dynamic of your relationships. Toxic people feel threatened by boundaries because boundaries expose their behavior. They can no longer hide behind emotional manipulation or subtle guilt. They can no longer rely on your silence. They can no longer depend on your compliance. Boundaries force toxic people to face themselves, and most of them cannot handle that level of accountability. The smartest people also understand that boundaries are not just verbal, they are behavioral. You can tell someone 100 times that something bothers you, but if your actions don't reflect your words, they will never take you seriously. Real boundaries show up in what you tolerate, what you walk away from, what you no longer invest your energy into. They show up in how quickly you distance yourself from drama, how consistently you protect your time, how firmly you end conversations that are taking you away from your peace. Toxic people notice when you stop feeding their patterns, and they will test you. They will push twice as hard to regain access to your energy. They may play the victim, pretend to change, or use emotional guilt to break your resolve. This is exactly why boundaries must be consistent. A boundary that shifts whenever someone applies pressure is not a boundary, it is an invitation for manipulation. Setting boundaries also teaches you emotional detachment. When you create clear lines in your relationships, you no longer react impulsively to others' behavior. You respond from a place of strength and clarity. You choose what you allow into your space, and this choice gives you power. Boundaries help you detach from toxic expectations, toxic conversations, and toxic responsibilities that are not yours to carry. They help you conserve your energy for the things and people that genuinely matter. Boundaries simplify your life because they eliminate confusion. Someone who respects your boundaries will adjust automatically. Someone who doesn't will reveal their true intentions quickly. Either way, you gain clarity. And the more you practice boundaries, the more natural they become. You begin to feel the difference in your body when someone crosses your line. You sense discomfort the moment someone tries to invade your emotional space. You develop a sharper intuition, a stronger self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of what supports your well-being versus what drains it. You begin to realize that boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling your access, your energy, and your environment. They are about refusing to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. They are about refusing to carry emotional weight that does not belong to you. They are about choosing yourself, honoring your peace, and creating space for healthier, more uplifting connections to enter your life. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful tools for dealing with toxic people, and it is a skill that the wisest individuals cultivate with intention. Many people confuse detachment with coldness or indifference. But true detachment is not about shutting your heart off. It is about preserving your emotional equilibrium while remaining fully aware of what is happening around you. Toxic people thrive on emotional involvement. They feed on your reactions, your guilt, your anger, your frustration, and your desire to prove yourself or justify your choices. They want you to care deeply about their approval, their opinions, or their drama, because that attachment gives them leverage. The moment you learn to detach emotionally, you remove the fuel from their fire. Detachment is like stepping back from a raging river. You acknowledge its flow, you see its power, but you no longer let it sweep you away. It allows you to observe without absorbing, to interact without compromising, and to respond without losing your center. Detachment begins with the recognition that you are not responsible for other people's behavior or emotions. Toxic people often try to make you believe that their unhappiness, their anger, or their chaos is your fault, but the smartest people know this is a lie. Everyone is responsible for themselves. When you internalize this truth, you can maintain emotional distance without feeling guilt. Detachment gives you the ability to see toxic people as individuals whose choices are a reflection of their own inner world, not a reflection of your worth, your character, or your value. This understanding creates freedom. You no longer feel compelled to fix them, convince them, or defend yourself. You no longer allow their negativity to infiltrate your mental and emotional space because you recognize that you are separate from it. One of the most significant benefits of detachment is clarity. When you are emotionally entangled, your judgment becomes clouded. You may feel obligated to respond in kind, to argue, to explain, or to justify your position, and in doing so, you lose sight of your own priorities. Detachment creates the mental space needed to assess the situation objectively. You see patterns more clearly. You understand the motives behind the behavior. You recognize which interactions are worth your energy and which are better left alone. This clarity is essential because toxic people often manipulate situations to keep you reacting rather than thinking. Detachment allows you to break free from that manipulation and regain control over your own mind. Detachment is also a shield that protects your energy. Toxic individuals are masters at creating emotional chaos, whether through criticism, passive aggression, manipulation, or drama. When you allow yourself to become entangled, their energy depletes yours. You may feel drained, anxious, or frustrated without even realizing why. Detachment ensures that you maintain your own vibration, your own stability, and your own momentum. It gives you the ability to engage selectively, to participate in necessary interactions with composure, and to disengage when an interaction becomes harmful or unproductive. It is not avoidance, it is a conscious choice to preserve your energy while still being aware of what is happening around you. Another critical aspect of detachment is emotional resilience. When you practice detachment consistently, you develop an inner armor that prevents toxic people from controlling your emotional state. You become less reactive, less defensive, and less influenced by provocation. You learn to respond from a position of strength rather than reacting from a place of fear, insecurity, or anger. This resilience changes the dynamics of every relationship. Toxic people may continue their patterns, but you are no longer the target of their influence. You maintain your peace while they remain trapped in their own cycle, and that creates a natural separation that protects your mental and emotional well-being. Detachment also fosters independence and self-reliance. When you are emotionally attached to the opinions, approval, or behaviors of toxic individuals, you give them power over your decisions, your self-esteem, and your confidence. Detachment allows you to reclaim that power. You learn to trust yourself, to validate your own worth, and to act from a place of certainty rather than fear of judgment. You stop seeking external validation from people who cannot provide it healthily and begin seeking alignment with your own values, goals, and sense of purpose. This independence makes it easier to walk away from situations that are harmful or unproductive because you are no longer dependent on the approval or participation of others to feel whole. Finally, detachment is an ongoing practice. It requires awareness, patience, and repetition. Toxic people will test your limits, attempt to provoke reactions, or manipulate situations to regain control. The more you practice detachment, the more natural it becomes. You develop the ability to observe without taking on unnecessary emotional weight, to engage without compromising your boundaries, and to respond without losing your center. You move through life with a sense of calm, focus, and clarity that toxic people cannot disturb because you have mastered the art of standing apart while remaining fully present. Detachment allows you to navigate relationships intelligently, to maintain inner peace amidst external chaos, and to rise above the influence of anyone who seeks to drain your energy or cloud your mind. Self-respect is the foundation upon which all healthy relationships and interactions are built, and it is the silent force that dictates how others will treat you. Without it, toxic people can infiltrate your life with ease because they sense weakness or uncertainty and exploit it. Self-respect is not about arrogance, entitlement, or distancing yourself from others. It is about valuing yourself enough to demand the treatment you deserve and refusing to settle for anything less. When you cultivate self-respect, you set an unspoken standard for everyone around you. You teach people how to interact with you through your own behavior, your choices, and the energy you project. It is the invisible line that separates those who add value to your life from those who drain it. Without self-respect, you may find yourself repeatedly drawn into toxic patterns because you have not established the baseline of how you should be treated, and toxic people will always exploit this gap. Developing self-respect begins with self-awareness. You must understand your own worth, your values, your principles, and your boundaries before you can expect others to honor them. People who lack self-respect often compromise their standards for the sake of approval, fear of confrontation, or the illusion of maintaining peace. This compromises their energy and invites toxic behavior into their space. On the other hand, when you operate from self-respect, your energy signals to the world that you will not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or neglect. You no longer bend under the weight of others' opinions or attempt to placate individuals who consistently drain you. Self-respect is the quiet power that allows you to stand firm in your values, even when it feels uncomfortable, unpopular, or inconvenient. It is the inner compass that guides your decisions, actions, and responses toward integrity rather than compromise. One of the most profound effects of self-respect is that it influences boundaries naturally. When you respect yourself, boundaries are no longer optional, they are essential. You no longer allow people to cross lines that diminish your energy or violate your principles. You no longer accept verbal abuse, manipulation, or neglect disguised as friendship or love. Self-respect makes it clear to toxic individuals that their usual tactics will no longer work. They realize that your space, time, and energy are not available for exploitation. The moment you cultivate this awareness, you become untouchable in ways that do not require aggression or confrontation. Your presence alone communicates strength, dignity, and the non-negotiable expectation of respect. Self-respect also shapes your decision-making. When you respect yourself, you are less likely to compromise your future or values for the temporary comfort of someone else's approval. You prioritize what aligns with your growth, your happiness, and your long-term vision rather than succumbing to the immediate demands or criticisms of toxic individuals. This clarity allows you to navigate relationships with intention rather than reaction. You choose engagements that support your well-being and walk away from those that don't. You stop rationalizing toxic behavior or making excuses for people who consistently hurt or disappoint you. Every decision becomes a reflection of your worth, and every action communicates to the world that you will not tolerate anything less than alignment with your self-value. Furthermore, self-respect strengthens your emotional immunity. When toxic people attempt to provoke you, guilt you, or manipulate your feelings, self-respect acts as a shield. You are able to recognize their tactics without internalizing them. You understand that their negativity, criticism, or attempts at control are not reflections of your worth, but manifestations of their own unresolved issues. This understanding creates distance between their chaos and your inner peace, preventing their toxicity from penetrating your mental or emotional state. The more deeply you respect yourself, the less susceptible you become to their influence because your sense of worth comes from within, not from the validation of others. Another critical aspect of self-respect is the alignment it creates between your inner and outer world. People who respect themselves do not compromise their integrity to appease others. They speak their truth with confidence, act in ways consistent with their principles, and refuse to participate in behaviors or relationships that violate their sense of self. This alignment communicates a powerful message. You cannot be manipulated, controlled, or disrespected without consequences. Toxic people sense this alignment immediately and are either compelled to adjust their behavior or remove themselves from your presence. Self-respect is not a defensive mechanism. It is an attracting force that draws people who operate from similar integrity and repels those who do not. Finally, cultivating self-respect requires consistent practice. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily commitment to honor your values, protect your energy, and act in alignment with your worth. It involves recognizing patterns of behavior that compromise your peace and choosing differently. It means refusing to justify or rationalize mistreatment and learning to walk away when necessary. It demands self-reflection, emotional discipline, and courage because asserting your worth will inevitably challenge the expectations and reactions of others. Over time, self-respect becomes an unshakable foundation, a lens through which you evaluate relationships and interactions, and the ultimate tool in neutralizing toxic influence because it establishes the standard that your life, your peace, and your energy are non-negotiable. Your environment is one of the most powerful yet often overlooked factors that shape the quality of your life, the clarity of your mind, and the energy you bring to every situation. Toxic people often operate in spaces of chaos, negativity, and low vibration, and when you allow yourself to remain in those environments physically, mentally, or emotionally, you absorb their energy without even realizing it. The smartest individuals understand that the people, places, and situations you consistently expose yourself to either lift you or drain you, and they make conscious choices to curate their environment in ways that align with their growth, peace, and purpose. Your environment is not just where you live or work, it is every interaction, every influence, and every subtle energy that surrounds you. When you begin to view it in this way, you start recognizing how critical it is to design it intentionally rather than leaving it to chance. A toxic environment does not only include people who are overtly negative, manipulative, or draining. It can also include places that lack inspiration, situations that constantly demand your energy without return, and patterns of thought that reinforce self-doubt or fear. Every conversation you engage in, every habit you maintain, and every media you consume contributes to the quality of your environment. When your surroundings are filled with drama, criticism, or chaos, your mind unconsciously absorbs that energy and begins to reflect it in your emotions, decisions, and behavior. Over time, this low vibration environment conditions you to accept less than you deserve, tolerate disrespect, and compromise your standards. The smartest people recognize this subtle influence and take proactive steps to control what they allow into their space, because they understand that external chaos left unchecked will always disrupt internal peace. Curating your environment begins with awareness. You must evaluate the people you spend time with, the conversations you participate in, the workspaces you occupy, and the media you consume. Every element has an impact, and the most successful individuals understand that even seemingly minor influences accumulate over time. Toxic people, even if they are family members, colleagues, or friends, have a cumulative effect on your emotional and mental state if exposure is constant. By identifying these influences, you gain the power to make choices about who and what deserves your attention. You may need to distance yourself from certain individuals, limit interactions, or create physical or emotional boundaries that protect your energy. This is not selfishness. It is a strategic, intelligent choice to safeguard your growth and well-being. Environment also directly affects your mindset. People who operate in high-energy, supportive, and inspiring spaces naturally think more clearly, make better decisions, and feel more motivated. On the other hand, toxic environments foster confusion, fear, and reactive behavior. If your goal is to cultivate clarity, peace, and productivity, your surroundings must support that vision. The smartest people do not leave this to chance. They actively create environments that reinforce their values, amplify their energy, and align with their long-term goals. They seek out spaces where respect, growth, and positivity are normalized. They surround themselves with individuals who uplift rather than diminish, who inspire rather than criticize, and who challenge in ways that build rather than break. By curating these influences, they ensure that their environment becomes a catalyst for growth instead of a source of stagnation or stress. Another key aspect of environment is the subtle energy it emits. Even when people are not overtly toxic, repeated exposure to low vibration attitudes such as constant complaining, judgment, or pessimism can influence your own energy. Toxic people rely on patterns. They expect you to mirror their frequency, to argue, or to become entangled in their drama. By consciously choosing to limit these exposures and create high vibration spaces, you protect yourself from this invisible drain. You strengthen your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And you ensure that your energy is aligned with progress, positivity, and purpose rather than being pulled into destructive cycles. Physical spaces also play a role in shaping your environment. Cluttered, chaotic, or neglected spaces reflect and reinforce mental turbulence. Clean, organized, and intentional spaces promote clarity, calm, and productivity. Toxic people often thrive in chaotic environments. But when you consciously create a space that reflects peace and order, you invite stability and focus into your life. This includes not only your home or workplace, but also the digital environments you occupy, the social media messages and information you allow into your mind. By curating these spaces intentionally, you reduce the chances of unwanted influences hijacking your energy and decision-making. Ultimately, your environment shapes the trajectory of your life. It determines how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Toxic people and negative spaces act as gravitational pulls, dragging your energy downward and keeping you stuck in cycles of stress, confusion, and low self-worth. The smartest people understand that they cannot always control the behavior of others, but they can control their exposure to it. By consciously selecting who and what is allowed into their environment, they protect their energy, maintain focus on their goals, and create a life that aligns with their values and aspirations. Every choice about your environment is a choice about your peace, your energy, and the life you are determined to live. Walking away is one of the most powerful actions a person can take, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people view walking away as weakness, as surrender, or as avoidance, but the truth is that walking away is an act of strength, wisdom, and clarity. It requires courage to remove yourself from situations, relationships, or environments that no longer serve your growth, peace, or purpose. Toxic people often thrive on attachment. They want to keep you entangled in their drama, manipulation, or negativity because it gives them control. The moment you choose to walk away, you reclaim your power. You remove yourself from the arena where their influence operates, and in doing so, you assert your non-negotiable right to preserve your energy, dignity, and peace of mind. Walking away is not about giving up on people or situations. It is about giving up on being drained, manipulated, or diminished in ways that compromise your well-being. To walk away effectively, you must first cultivate self-awareness. You need to recognize the signs that a person or situation is toxic, that your energy is being drained, and that your boundaries are being crossed. This requires honest reflection and the ability to separate emotions from reality. Toxic people often mask their behavior behind charm, guilt, or subtle manipulation, making it difficult to see clearly. But with awareness, you learn to identify patterns rather than isolated incidents. You notice the repeated cycles of criticism, manipulation, or negativity that have no intention of changing. Walking away is the culmination of this awareness. It is the intelligent response that acknowledges the truth without being reactive, defensive, or hostile. It is an act of strategic disengagement that protects your energy while leaving the responsibility of their behavior squarely on them. Walking away also demands emotional discipline. Toxic people will often try to provoke a reaction, guilt you into staying, or manipulate your sense of loyalty or obligation. They may make threats, employ emotional blackmail, or attempt to evoke fear of loss to keep you entangled. The smartest individuals understand that none of this is a reflection of their worth or value. Emotional discipline allows you to remain calm and centered in the face of these tactics. It allows you to disengage without anger, to exit without drama, and to maintain integrity while asserting your boundaries. Walking away is not fueled by emotion, it is fueled by clarity, self-respect, and a commitment to your own growth. Another critical aspect of walking away is understanding that it is a form of self-preservation. Toxic people thrive on your energy, your attention, and your emotional investment. Every interaction you have with them, if it is not consciously managed, drains your mental and emotional resources. Over time, this depletion can manifest as stress, anxiety, doubt, and even a diminished sense of self-worth. By walking away, you remove yourself from this cycle before it causes irreversible damage. You create the space needed to heal, regain your focus, and redirect your energy toward people and environments that are supportive, uplifting, and aligned with your values. Walking away is therefore not a retreat. It is a strategic advance toward your own well-being and potential. Walking away also communicates boundaries more effectively than words ever can. When you consistently tolerate toxic behavior, people are likely to test the limits of your patience, continue crossing lines, and challenge your energy. But the act of walking away sets a clear, unspoken standard. This is behavior I will not accept. This is an energy I will not entertain. This is a presence I will not tolerate in my life. It is a demonstration of inner strength that speaks louder than any argument, explanation, or confrontation could. Walking away makes it clear that your life, your peace, and your energy are non-negotiable, and those who wish to remain in your space must meet the standards you have established. Furthermore, walking away is a profound teacher of detachment and perspective. When you remove yourself from toxic influences, you gain clarity about your own needs, priorities, and values. You are able to observe situations objectively without being clouded by emotional entanglement or manipulation. This clarity allows you to make better decisions, form healthier relationships, and cultivate environments that support your growth. Walking away is not an act of rejection. It is an act of discernment. It allows you to distinguish between what adds value to your life and what subtracts from it, creating the freedom to invest in people, places, and experiences that truly align with your vision. Lastly, walking away empowers you to reclaim your narrative. Toxic people often try to control how you feel, think, and act, attempting to shape your reality in a way that serves their agenda. By choosing to walk away, you reclaim the authorship of your life. You choose your own path, your own priorities, and your own energy. You no longer allow someone else's chaos, negativity, or manipulation to dictate your emotional state, your decisions, or your trajectory. Walking away is an act of liberation. It frees you from the gravitational pull of toxic influence, allowing you to step into spaces where growth, peace, and purpose flourish, and where your energy can be directed toward building the life you were always meant to live.